Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Hi there. We got ourselves a recap of week 7. And I didn't realize that this video had some words in it, but I decided to go with some music for a change. Hopefully that won't throw you guys off entirely. I think as we go into this, it'll be easier to understand. So we got ourselves week 7. It's a recap. Of course, we did manage to capture a scene, or rather the entire game, because it was pretty much just one single scene that was immortalized this weekend. D4 conflict. Absolutely incredible stuff. I won't spoil anything, of course, until I will have to cover it, so I will touch on it quickly. But it was pretty impressive shit. So I hope that you guys are ready for this, because we got ourselves False versus the Jester. I don't quite recall, again, because I have not been paying too much attention to the names of teams. But yeah, we got 3 players here that are not starters. Quartos, False, and 4Gs, as I like to call him. And of course, lest we forget, there are 2 more games, but they are much more well known for obvious reasons. D4 has now become pretty much a familiar name in the minds of many. Not just among fans of GSC, but there are the people that lurk around, and every now and then, they watch and they look at the numbers. We're here for the quality, but there are people that are just there for the storyline, and I can completely understand that. And they notice, oh shit, this guy, never heard of him before. Is he gonna pull it off? Is he gonna pull off a whole perfect win streak? Things like that. So we got ourselves False vs. Jester, and let me switch back to that. So I don't know what to tell you guys, but these games have increased in quality, in my opinion. Hang on a second, because this microphone is not agreeing with me right now, so I gotta stop the recording and start it again. So,
all right, so here we are. We got ourselves False vs. Jester, and we're gonna start off. I remember this game being a little long, so I will try and be quick about it. We got Jinx lead. False going with False, who is thank you on the bottom, goes for an immediate sub and attempts to freeze the Raikou. Of course, that doesn't happen immediately because we're good people, and the gods respond to our prayers. In comes Jinx from Jester, so looking to be something like a double electric here. Fori. Why are the switches so fast? They're lightning fast. All right. False does a pretty interesting play. Not all people go for this. Not all people opt for this, especially against Thunder Raikou. The idea behind Thunder Raikou being that you can 3-hit KO zap. So it seems like a deterrent. But if you manage to get a para on the Raikou, it's really abusable by Jinx, Lax, everything. So if there's one Mon that can take on Raikou and maybe live to tell the tale, it's Zapdos. So in comes Cloyster on this bear, Excalibur. Lovely Kiss, so no spikes, it would seem, for now at least. We do see the Lovely Kiss Lax. It's going to deal a lot to the Golem, not quite half. Well, in the meantime, it's going to get whatchamacallit, so it's going to get statused. Of course, False could have boomed, but it would have been a bit preemptive. Jester could have called it out. So the Roar seemed like a very solid play to me, especially because you call out the rest in case Jester clicks rest preemptively. So basically forces him to come in with 2 turns of sleep to burn. So the Roar was a good play. And in fact, now it came in and it's at 50. So if for any reason False had chosen to click Earthquake, that Lax would have been in trouble. False makes a double, goes to Cloyster, but the Zapdos is going to chase it out. And so Jester's going to be the one to get the spikes first. And we see Maybe I'm a Tiger, that's the name of his Raikou, getting paralyzed. And Hidden Power, probably Ice, is going to take out that Golem. It could be Water. Good players differentiate between the two Hidden Powers since you have two electrics. Like, what's the point of having them do the same thing? And we see Sub Nightmare. Sub Nightmare Lovely Kiss, meaning this Jinx has no Psychic. No Psychic. Just Lovely Kiss. Force the Raikou out and successfully manages to put the Umbreon to sleep. We don't know what set that is, but of course, she got the bang for her buck. So yeah, that's good. All right. I think that's how the expression is used. Please correct me if I ever use any wrong expressions. It's kind of hard to stay in the loop with language when I don't really listen to people every day. And I live in a country that is entirely foreign to the use of English. We're not quite there yet in Italy. So, Lax. In comes the Cloyster. What I like about this is that False believes in the chance to wake up the Cloyster. But of course, she has to be cautious. They have to be cautious. False has to be cautious about the Lax coming in. If Jester at any point manages to wake up that Lax, which should be his objective right now, False is without a phaser, so... In fact, I kind of forgot how it died. Oh yeah, from the Raikou. So, Skarmory is a setup. It's your classic Drill Peck Whirlwind. In Gen 2, I don't believe that Skarmory can learn Roar, but it is a TM, so I'm not certain. And we do see that the Snorlax is Earthquake, so it's not entirely threatening. The Lax is going to rest up, and this Drill Peck is kind of scary. Kind of puts Jester in a position to Spike's phase a lot, and that's what he does. He stays in, he goes for a second Whirlwind. Machamp is taking additional damage here. Can go for yet another Whirlwind. The reason to switch to Zapdos is, of course, because it's Flying type. And so you're minimizing the Spike's damage spread throughout your Mons. Because if you switch to a grounded Mon and then they click Whirlwind, that's 2 Mons taking 12.5%. So it's very high value. I can only imagine how deadly that move can be in other gens, where 24%, if you get more spikes and stuff like that, that can be really annoying. So Zap coming in. It's T-Bolt. Had it been Thunder, it might have been a little more scary, but the Lax is still gonna live either way. In this scenario, it was in a percentage where it was safe regardless. So, is the Raikou still asleep? Maybe I'm a Tiger, yes. It's no longer paralyzed, so it's still very much usable and not abusable. Cloyster is very low. It has to win this and maybe wake up. It can win a speed tie with Skarmory. I'm being a little bit hasty here. Of course, the Cloyster lives on a Skarmory, but it can't come in now, I don't think. Definitely can't come in on a +1 Skarm with spikes on the ground. So the obvious choice is to go to Zap. Comes in, that was a really, 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 really nice double. So let's see that again. So goes to Lax and doubles the Cloyster. Very nice. And successfully manages to wake up. So, of course, this Fortress could spin, in which case the Cloyster will have to come in a second time. So the name of the game for false is to keep that cloister alive and then find that window of opportunity. Jester making a beautiful negation of a play there. Pretty solid team, I would say. I'm not a huge fan of double electric, and one day I will talk about why. I'll go into detail about why I don't love double electric. I don't love any double electric. I think they're all fine, but kind of average sometimes. At the very least, one thing I would like to say. So this Lax was in a nearly kind of sort of dangerous range there, but Jester probably calced that, rests up, and false will come in on a rest switch. Goes for the aggro play. Good choice, I guess. Of course, I think a double edge would not have been a good idea because you would lose the Lax. So it wouldn't really have been a valuable trade because due to the recoil, all the health that Machamp has, it most likely would have died. So here's the thing I want to mention. Now you have Skarm and you have Zap. So with both Skarm and Zap, you can... You know what? I think there was... Maybe it's too soon to say this. Well, in any case, you are much safer against Machamp. Perhaps not as safe as if you had Starmie, but that really depends. So there's a cross chop crit. So the Skarmory is finally low for the first time. In comes Skarm again, gets some HP back. Good double to do that. Drill Peck. So here, Skarmory is just out of range of a Surf or an Ice Beam. Goes for a Boom, which is a very interesting play to make, and Jinx is here, so there's that. Of course, Jester will switch out. That it's up to him what he decides to use. But of course, with the threat of Nightmare, you gotta be cautious. And the Tiger is frozen. Oh Lord, that sucks. So in that case, what I would like to say is that look at this guy, Fori. Fori would have also been a good option. Directly from, well, perhaps not directly from Skarmory, because of course there's the threat of sub. But Fori is an option. What you could do is, well, nothing, I guess, because Raikou got frozen on the first possible turn, but if it had gotten just a little bit more weakened, then the Fori could have boomed and maybe put it in range of a Thunder from Raikou. But that's not how it went down. Fori quite famously resists Ice Beam, so that's pretty interesting to see. The Lax is in a yucky spot, and apparently it would appear that the Umbreon is not Sleep Talk, otherwise I would expect it to come in here. It's not coming in. The Raikou's frozen, so the Fori doesn't risk much, but what's it going to do? Is it going to break the sub? Is it going to boom? It's going to go for HP Fire. I don't even know if that's guaranteed to break it, which is scary. Could be HP Bug, actually, but that might be the reason. So with +1, Machamp is very scary, as it can OHKO Skarm with a crit, even at 100%. But of course, your only choice here is to use Zapdos. And here, personally, he went for the Calc, which, you know what? I actually like this play a lot. I like this play a lot because it outspeeds Machamp. Double edge kills here, so he threatens it out. And he can obviously set up this turn if he chose to, but yeah. Also, Skarmory wouldn't have been a bad choice, I guess, but yeah. +1 and manages to take out the Zapdos in this interaction, which means things go well. Cross Chop OHKOs with a crit, but not without a crit. So that's up to you what to do. He fodders the Umbreon, but it doesn't die. He goes to Raikou, which Okay, I can understand why go to Raikou here. The Zapdos is gone. It's not as important anymore. Skarmory deals... Holy crap. Okay, so Skarmory deals a lot to the Jinx there. Alright then. I'm pretty sure there was something more that I missed, but oh well. Double Edge. +1. This quote-unquote beats Sleep Talk. Jester goes for a rest. Goes for a great double. Does he double back? No. Will he curse? Yes. Yeah, that pretty much puts everything in range. Makes sense to me. Just keeps on attacking and gets HP in the process. 11%. One more curse would probably push the Skarmory further. And, ooh, okay. False going for the interesting play of double edging and actually manages to get a crit. So... what's the deal with that? With the crit, it would appear that it's more securely in range of an Ice Beam. So now Jester is in deep doggy doo-doo. It's a Nightmare Jinx. Might have been a better idea to sack the Skarm or the Umbreon or something. I don't know. But that also lets Machamp come in to set up. So the Lax is going to go down to another crit. Jester is pissed. And it would appear that the Umbreon is actually Sleep Talk. Too little too late, I guess. As the Umbreon also goes down, and this is the game. But why the hell wouldn't you use your Pursuit Umbreon to come in on a Jinx? This doesn't make sense to me. It did nothing except serve as an extra entry point. If you're not going to use it, if you're not going to find any application for it, you might as well throw it into this deadly monster. I don't know. I was wondering why it hadn't been revealed until now. That's very weird. Very weird. All right then. Well, that's our game. False, managing to show that you can win even without spikes as a win con. In fact, Machamp is the epitome of I don't need spikes to win kind of offense. To me, more so than Marowak. Because Marowak isn't always able to hold up and really needs to have a lot of things go in its favor. It needs a lot of different things. Machamp can kind of just solo sometimes into these poor matchups. We got 4Gs versus Seatum. Skarm. And an early Toxic, which I always appreciate. Skarm lives lives a lot of moves. Obviously doesn't live a crit Thunder, but what are you going to do about that? So, you're going to take the hit, but it would appear that 4Gs probably has something like a Mono Lax here. Skarmory, going to Curse up, so it's Curse Toxic. Is it Curse Toxic Sleep Talk? We're not sure yet. Raikou coming in, goes for the T-Bolt. And that's some nice chip to have on that Mon there. 4Gs is going to bring in the Lax, giving Seatum a turn advantage in the Spikes game. And Raikou's going to come in for free. But, lo and behold, one singular Ice Punch has been thrown. And Raikou got the short straw. What the fuck, man? This is not fair. I'm just gonna say it. How many games have I covered where Gengar threw one Ice Punch and froze something? That's the first Ice Punch. It just did nothing. Like, it otherwise would have been entirely inconclusive. Like, in another world, Seatum clicks Hidden Power Ghost and Fori gets frozen and that's it. Nothing happens. Seatum's in the lead. But no, the Raikou had to get frozen. Fuck off. Seriously. What is this bullshit? Alright. I need to calm down. It is a children's game after all. We do see that Siatam has a double elect 4Gs. Appears to be going with a classic Garlics. Anybody want some garlic now? Should we call that kind of offense that? Garlics? Yeah, we're gonna do that. 20 likes and we're gonna do that. It will officially be called Garlics. We see a Misdreavus, so that's nice. It seems not too helpful, and this is perhaps one of the first reasons why I don't love Double Electric. It's not good into Steelix. Well, granted, this is a Double Electric Fori. It could have been Double Electric Cloyster. Maybe Siatam didn't see any Steelix usage in this player, and 4Gs is rather new, so. Raikou, Fori going for HP Fire, which is super effective, but it's kind of nothing to write home about. But 2 are something to write home about. So we gotta hope that maybe one of these electric guys are... You know what? That trade-off isn't too bad, but I would have at least, I don't know, attempted to spike or spin or whatever the fuck it's called, spin. But yeah, the matchup was entirely kind of crap. At least the Lix is down, so Siatam prioritizing some things. In some scenarios, you can't always focus on the spikes game. But that's kind of what I don't like about the whole Double Electric thing again. It really loops back into that. That they have to kind of just forfeit certain things sometimes. Especially with a frozen popsicle of a tiger. For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to call it the SpongeBob Popsicle now. And to make matters worse, 4Gs is running meta. Screech Tar is more meta, in my opinion. But it's Screech Tar and some garlic. Lax comes in. At least the Zapdos is scary. You know, especially with the Lix so weakened, this Zapdos. Lax is just barely out of range, so unless it's gonna go down, so that definitely helps. And in this scenario, you know, if the SpongeBob Popsicle were not a SpongeBob Popsicle, 4Gs would be in deep doggy doo-doo right now, because he'd be staring down two electrics that have, while having a weakened, very much fodder of a Steelix, and then a Tar, which isn't exactly an electric check, and a Gengar. Like, every time Raikou was in here, it would have been so deadly. But no, it had to get frozen on the first time it came in. Or the second time it came in, but so this really sucks. But 4Gs is capitalizing, which is good. I don't really have much else to say. Like, Misdreavus would have been nice, I guess. It's usually nicer into stall. Protect Psychic is more to deal with things like Gengar and Nidoking. But both Tar and Lix love to come in on Misdreavus, so you're not really going to see that interaction all that much. Siatam going for the aggressive play, which is a very good thing to do. Not quite in range of a Thunder here, which is shitty. But with the Lax gone, maybe he can go to Skarmory. Not that it's going to achieve much. Comes in on a Paraturn. So the Screech is nice because it forces a lot of switches. It forces unfavorable interactions, especially with the spikes on the ground. So Screech Tar is looking here to stay in today's meta. It's by no means new. It's very much, it was a known thing for a long time now. What's rather new, depending on how you look at it, is the combo of Targar Licks. It's just so damn good, and it looks like it's not overstaying its welcome, and it's not getting old anytime soon. The Zap, this sounds like more of a meta coverage than a week recap. Yeah. I know. My cat is here. Cloyster. Alrighty. I realized I kept the same song on loop for more than 20 minutes, but I'll fix that in a sec, I guess. Miss Drevis coming in. Miss Drevis is nice into Cloyster, but, doesn't do much into T-Tar especially if you're Psychic Protect, so Lax attempting to threaten it out, but not really achieving much. If Siatam can just take one more Mon out, that would make his life so much easier. In fact, both the Licks and the Gar are proving to be very, very resilient. Same goes for the T-Tar, actually. Now, this Zapdos is in an awkward position because it has only 6 T-Bolts left. Of course, you don't want it to run out of those, but, In that scenario, I see Siatam's Skarmory being annoying, but decides not to go to Zap despite it coming in for free. I'm not sure what that's about. My cat. Come on, show us that you have T-Bolt. Nope. Rest, protect. This is not going to look good. Yeah, and the Miss Drevis gets pursued out. That didn't really help much. I think it's like 5 T-Bolts left. Cloyster coming in, taking 25. And a 30 more for his troubles. So all that Siatam can do is use Skarmory or Miss Drevis as fodder. Manages to catch a boom, but he doesn't catch a break. Because T-Tar is going to kill this Miss Drevis now. Or is it? Can he live for another turn? Nope. He just needed one more turn. I don't know what he would have achieved after that, but still. Probably clicked rest again. That would have been nice. The para kind of sucks because you can't even Toxic the Tar. So everything that could have gone wrong in this game went wrong for Siatam. And it wasn't even his fault. But yeah, goes to Lax. And I like this play a lot. This was a really, really good play. See, even though the game is, I'm speaking from a perspective as though the game were over, it's not. This Zapdos, if it can just get past this Gengar, is very much in a position to win. 4Gs has been trying his best to capitalize, but he was not entirely in the lead. He wasn't very much in a position to lose this whole time as well. And we're 110 turns in, but the Zapdos is at 28%. All it needs is to lose a speed tie, and then Siatam can possibly take out the Tar. So he needs the Zapdos to live, of course. And so 4Gs can obviously Ice Punch or Boom, probably going for the Ice Punch first. Nope, goes for an early Boom, which is fine. And Siatam catches it, and now Zapdos is in the conversation, can take out this Tar, can use Rest. The Tar can full para, but nope. So it was really close. It was really close. Despite everything that happened to Siatam. So good on him. He made some committal choices, and he did what he could. I don't like Miss Drevis, but shoutouts to Sulcata for using Miss Drevis. So time to change the tunes real quick. Let's see what we got. Let's see. We'll go for this one, and we'll just call it a night. Okay, so game 3. Okay, we're back. I had a bit of things to do, so I decided to record in two separate occasions, but it's going to be compiled into one part, so everything I'm saying right now isn't important. What I would like you to ask you guys is to consider subscribing if you are enjoying the coverage of this tournament. Also, if any of you guys are interested in this music, I've also used it in my last discussion video. All of the music that you recently heard is produced by this channel right here. So his name is Scarim. So you can go and check out that and subscribe to him, support his free music. You can use it for your own videos as well. All right, so back to Fear versus Quartos. We got the Tigers, Fear, and Quartos, who I believe is the Scooters. I'm getting flashbacks here, but it is what it is. So seriously though, I feel like these players have already played. That's how much I'm losing track of time. We got Lax lead and Cloister lead. We haven't seen all too much Cloister lead. So for the viewers back home, Cloister lead, really good. It means you're confident into electric leads. Probably you have a Raikou in the back. Generally though, but not certainly. Just because going into a Snorlax as you take a Thunder and then get crit really sucks. So you wouldn't really want to concede that much, but you get the early spikes. Usually that's good. So you could have an offensive team, a defensive team. That Tar comes in, but immediately switches out, which is kind of interesting. Fear going for a early rest here and revealing Sleep Talk, but no fourth move as of yet. We don't know if it's Curse, if it's Sleep Talk, Earthquake. I would imagine that, yeah. Okay, so I imagined it would have been something along the lines of EQ, but now I'm remembering that I already looked at this game and I'm stupid, so. Thorlax. Thorlax loves to see Cloister out of the way. No. I fucked everything up. All right, I'm gonna start this over real quick. It's only been 2 minutes. I totally missed the animation there again. So we see a double edge, right? All right. And then Cloister goes for Toxic, and there's a Thunder miss. How did I miss this Thunder? I don't know. So, yeah. All right. Dodged a bullet there, I guess. That's my incompetence. And it was just after asking you guys to subscribe. Imagine that. So Thunder, paired with Double Edge, is specifically meant to hit KO Cloister. That doesn't mean that Thunder isn't meant to target other things as well. Thunder Lax is a wall breaker set, and usually you want to break Skarmory, but also Cloister, because Skarmory walls a lot of physical attackers. And we already saw the Porygon 2, all right? But suppose you had a Marowak, it would have been just as useful. You know, landing a Thunder, you take out the Cloister. For obvious reasons, that would be very beneficial to the team. The spikes, the water type, the fact that it's bulky, the boom, everything. But it's also good against mons like Skarmory, so there. And the paralysis in general is nice to spread. So, yeah. So, there's the double edge. I kind of want to go back and see if I actually missed the stuff or if the animation went by very quickly. So the T-Tar switches out, which to me is kind of interesting for that Quartos chose to switch out on what is most likely a Thunderlax, but justifiably, I guess, because we have seen players like Conflict use Lovely Kiss and perhaps even Thunder and Self-Destruct. I know for one that I have definitely seen it in the GSC Invitational. I think Lax was a player who used it once. So it seems pretty wild, but in reality, it's not all that crazy. So Porygon, like, it's not so out there that you shouldn't ever expect something like that. So if this is the phaser, it makes sense that Quartos switches out just to scout. So respecting that. And Porygon 2. I'm just going to pause 1 second and say that I very much appreciate the level of play of some of the new starters. Let's call them that. In Quartos, 4Gs, and who was the other guy? Or a girl, or False. False was another player, but False is very well known in the community. So, but Quartos and 4Gs is not, like, we're not all too familiar with them, right? So they've been doing a good job, and I like that. It's not, yeah. So I expected it to be kind of, I raised my eyebrows when I saw them in the lineup, but in reality, they're doing all right. So, Lax on Lax, which is kind of interesting. It's not so much that Fear switched to Lax knowing that Quartos would go to his, but they both switched to their Lax on the same turn, and Quartos had Boom. There's not going to be any spikes on his side because he boomed on the Cloyster. And we see a reveal Heracross, which looks very mighty fine into this team here. It gets a crit into Zapdos, which is the one thing that doesn't want to get crit. And T-Bolt Zapdos, it's a little bit nicer rather than other Mons, because Thunder is really, really annoying to have to land on a Heracross. Okay, so the Golem immediately booms. In my opinion, the Golem wasn't trying to target Cloyster, but perhaps Heracross as it switches in. That's just my opinion. But like I was saying, T-Bolt has less successful chances of paralyzing, but it's a bit nicer to hit certain targets when you are relying on it to do so the most. And we do see Quartos following the trend in that double normal. That's going to give Fear a bit of a hard time. But we do see Porygon 2 reliable as ever. This is not the first time we've seen it in this tournament. It's been used by Conflict against Alice in what I believe was week 2 or week 1 or something. It didn't really work very well, but still. Porygon 2. It's slower than Cloyster, so seeing that Cloyster out of the way is nice. That means Quartos has to commit to something a lot more, committal to beat the Porygon 2, because Golem is slower, so it can boom, but if it booms, maybe that opens the team up a bit more to the Lax. And Fear is bringing a double normal, so double normal is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting squad. The Lax is coming in, but unfortunately it is walled. And, judging by how this team is structured, I suppose those spikes, yes, they would have been helpful, but they wouldn't have been there for long, because this Lax just invites Golem in every single time. And it would most certainly have found an opportunity to spin. Golem is boss level difficulty in terms of spin blocking. It's just so hard. It hits like a truck. It can Oko Gengar with Earthquake, and it can 2-hit KO Mischievous. And they're the only 2 spin blockers, so. Alright, Harry the Heracross is setting up, is bulking up, goes for a Mega Horn. And look at how much that does. That's a respectable amount of damage. Considering that the Zapdos has to land T-Bolt to threaten the Heracross, Quartos can... Quartos can actually apply a lot of pressure onto that Zapdos. And the Raikou, and all of this that's going on. Fear not really wanting to go to Lax, as he knows that it would let the Golem in. So, yes, you could do it, but if he can avoid having to rely on using Lax, it's always nicer. And the final mon is revealed, and we see a female Alakazam who goes for an immediate Toxic, predicting the Tyranitar switch-in. As it switches out and takes 63% from a Pursuit. So we don't know if it's going to be able to do much else, but at the very least, this helps in the whole double normal offense agenda. Porygon 2, we have not seen any move. Oh, never mind, I'm lying. We have already seen that it has Ice Beam, so it threatens the Golem, and with the T-Tar Toxic, it's very tricky that in the long run, Quartos will be able to wall everything. So Quartos has to find a game plan to break through this Zapdos very fast. That could have been an opportunity there, but the Heracross was dangerously low. So, Pori. Fear attempting to freeze things, which is a good strategy. Will it set up here? We're about to find out. As Raikou goes for Sleep Talk, takes a return. This could be a good turn to set up if the Porygon has a setup move. Of course, if this Porygon gets paralyzed, it will be really bad for Fear, because that's probably the single worst status that Porygon 2 can get. Perhaps worse than Toxic. Alright. Chipping that T-Tar down to dangerously low percentages. I don't think Fear will stay in here. Oh, never mind. It's a wake-up turn, so then in that case he will. But if it were a Sleep Talk turn, it would have been risky. So that T-Tar is as good as dead now. It's not going to get phased in. So the next time it comes in, it's going to die. Quartos is going to use it as fodder. And in the meantime, has this Golem. But this Golem is in a really, really tricky spot, because it's going to get damage every time by the Lax. It has to come in. It can't not do that. And Porygon 2 obviously threatens the Golem. So if Golem booms on Porygon 2, then Fear can attempt to sweep with the Lax, or vice versa with the Porygon 2. And Alakazam outspeeds Raikou. One of the real reasons why Alakazam is so good is because of its speed, and it just beats the electrics sometimes. Insane prediction there. Predicting the Heracross. That was very nice. Basically forcing Quartos to use up a sack, and now Fear is at an advantage. But Quartos knows his outs, and the Golem is there. He does have a Spikes advantage, which is nice, but he knows he can't boom, so Alakazam. What can Alakazam do? It could spread Toxic? No, it's going to go for Encore. So locking this Golem in, but at the very least, the Golem is facing a Snorlax, so that's not so bad. And now it's facing a Porygon 2. So the Porygon 2 can go for a freeze, it can curse, and the Heracross also has curse. Of course, Quartos is still at a disadvantage, because really all Fear has to do is weaken the Heracross to a sufficient percentage, which would be the KO threshold for Alakazam Psychic. So as long as he doesn't bring Alakazam in, he is fine, even if this Heracross is at +4. So, or ×4 or whatever. Yeah, ×4, +6. Zap. So, this has been going rather quickly for a +100 turn game. I mean, we don't know if it's going to reach 100 turns, but Porygon 2 is looking very threatening. And that's just a shame, because I suppose if Quartos had brought more boom offense, he would have been more in control than he is now. And that is the beauty of boom offense. You get to check players that are stronger than you. And look at how much damage that does. +1 return. I don't remember if Porygon 2 learns Double Edge. I'll have to look that up after. But Quartos might have to make a fancy switch. Nope. There's a Roar. It might have been the opportunity to click boom there, but it was at full. I think that might have been the right moment to do it. Oh well. So, Raikou is obviously a lot scarier against the Alakazam when it's awake because it can paralyze it, cripple it permanently. And there's a boom. I don't know how valuable that boom was. It's not bad. I suppose the boom could have been worse, but the Heracross dies. What on earth happened there? Was that a double? It was. Oh, he doubled. Well, that's a shame. I respect the valiant effort. That was a really good... that would have paid off. That would have paid off a lot. If only Fear had gone for that. But Fear probably knew that the Alakazam was going to be able to pressure, and worst case scenario, if he stays in on the Raikou, he can always go back to Lax. And at that point, his Heracross would have been in a bad spot. So, good job, honestly. Good game from both players. And this is just one tiny example of how you can win without using spikes. You can be very successful by just having two Pokemon effectively wall breaking for each other. And this is against a team with two normal resists. Both very good into Lax. So this wasn't even a solid matchup for Fear, but he played very well. I mean, it depends how you look at it, obviously. But for the two normals, it wasn't a great matchup. But the Alakazam definitely looks strong into this team. Because even the bulkiest Raikou Sleep Talk set will struggle against Alakazam. That's just one of the beauties of this Pokemon. So let's move on. I suppose with each game, we can change the beat. I'm just going to play this one. These are all free. Same channel as before. Skyrim. Go and check them out. All right. And you already know what's coming. It's D4 versus Conflict. I already covered this game, but I suppose I could be a little more analytical. We'll see. We got Lax on Lax. Not much to say here. So, obviously, the two options you have if you choose to stay in on a Lax are double edging immediately and cursing. Okay, that's no shit, Sherlock. Is that what I subscribed to your channel for? Or didn't? No, the point is that once you're at +1, you're not going to attack again. So there are very different game plans. Because, of course, who's to say that you are cursed? Who's to say you aren't boom? There are a bunch of different ways that this game can go down, and it also depends on your team. So, by looking into the meta, what we can say is some players actually like to lead with Sleep Talk and Earthquake. Some other players, like this guy, Conflict, occasionally like to lead with Lovely Kiss and Self-Destruct, or Lovely Kiss, Curse, and No Rest. And that plays in a different scenario. And there are players who will lead with Curse EQ, or which to me is a different set from Curse Lovely Kiss. They all play out very differently. And then there is, of course, the classic mono curse talk. So if you want to assume the worst in a battle, you will probably assume the set that beats you or the one that can 6-0 your team the fastest. And if there is a mon that can 6-0 your team, it's definitely, Snorlax is definitely amongst one of those. Curse EQ usually just beats offense if everything goes to shit. So when I say that some people will double edge turn 1, it's because they want to force that Lax to rest, regardless of what set it is. They go and they force the Lax to rest. Usually that's to carry out an offensive plan. Usually that's if you have something like a T-Tar rather than, say, a Steelix. Maybe you have a Golem. Steelix is just so damn thick that it can take on most of the threats. But, yeah. So damaging Lax is nice. In this meta, Lovely Kiss, you won't see a lot of players clicking Lovely Kiss on a lead Lax on turn 1. So we could fairly safely rule that out. Turn 2, it's already a little bit more possible. A lot of things can play into that. But yeah, so what happens after that first double edge is that you can go for a second one. And at that point, you'll bring down the Lax to 30 or 40-ish%, maybe 50, depending on whether or not, depending on whether or not your opponent clicked Curse or not. So if you bring the Lax down to 40%, then maybe it didn't click Curse. But if you brought it to 50, then it clicked Curse, which means the next turn, you'll be able to attack it again before it can attack you and use a second setup move or use rest. So there's even a chance to crit and win easy. It's a strategy. You gotta factor in the RNG. But I think the real reason why people do that is because they want to force that opposing Lax to use rest as early as possible. Now assume that at +1, the opponent, for some reason that we cannot understand, does choose to attack you, and they attack you with double edge. Okay, so they hit you for 50 at +1, but they could have hit you before, and now they're at around 30 or 40 thanks to the recoil. It's really dangerous, so they almost certainly would be forfeiting the Lax. That's not really an option. So there's stuff like that. I'm talking based on head calcs. I'm not calcing everything because you can go and use the damage calc yourself if you want to break that down. But yeah. So as a rule of thumb, players that usually go for Curse are obviously Curse, and players that go for double edge might not be Curse, and they could be double edge Sleep Talk. There's one more thing to factor in. Now, assume I hit you with double edge and you go for Curse. Let's pretend D4's Lax is, for a second, it's unrevealed, but it's certainly, he doesn't go for the Curse. So he doesn't go for the Curse. Another thing that can happen is I chip you, Doesn't really matter if I win that speed tie. I'll either have chipped you for 30 or maybe a little bit less because of, again, the maybe Conflict won the speed tie and set up a Curse before taking a double edge on turn 1. Okay. But my Lax is guaranteed to OHKO your Lax if I click self-destruct now. I'm faster, so I will get it. It's good. It's a good move if that's what you're aiming for, because unlike with other Boom Mons, Lax is really good at targeting opposing Snorlax in with Boom, because players really want to pressure the opposing Snorlax. So when they click Curse, they are very much committed to taking a hit. You won't usually see someone click Curse and then switch out on the following turn. That's stupid. Okay? All right, that's all I have to say. And I'll just let this play out. Maybe it's a little bit more informed. So now you know what the path is. They're setting up, which probably means they're confident that they have some solutions in the back to phase out Snorlax, forcing them either to rest and then phasing them, or bringing in something like a Gengar, which just walls +4 lax. Something like that. And Steelix is beautiful because Steelix can take a +5 Earthquake from Lax. +5 is the maximum attack. Conflict has Body Slam, which, as I might remind you, doesn't deal as much. But to make matters even more interesting, when the stats are maxed out, they aren't dealing as much to each other. Consider that Snorlax has a higher attack than it has a defense. So when both of these stats are capped, it's going to be dealing less damage than if they were both unboosted. So they're dealing less damage to each other. But the crits would make them deal more because it negates the stat boosts of the other guy. More or less, as a general, very, very imprecise rule of thumb. But yeah, I don't really pay too much attention to crit mechanics. In comes Umbreon. It doesn't trap. I've had someone say that, Umbreon could be Mean Look, and yes, it could. I would be very shocked to see Mean Look, though. And the reason, to me, seems pretty obvious. Like, can you imagine why Mean Look would not be very good in this team? What does it achieve aside from trapping Snorlax? You trapped a Nidoking, you have a Zapdos to take care of it. You probably have a Sleep Talk Lax. So what? You trapped a Nidoking? Mean Look doesn't even pair very well with Rest Talk, so you can't beat Rest Talk. So as soon as this thing is statused, it's on a timer. So, suppose you brought in Cloyster. Okay, sure, yeah, you have a Golem in the back, but that's it? Are you really going to use one Mon just to win your Spikes War? Umbreon, I'm not saying it wouldn't have Charm, but Mean Look Charm in today's meta where Mean Look Pass is banned? So, yeah, this is SPL. We're playing at a best of one, after all. But, so anything can happen. It's true. So, you could criticize D4 for not respecting Mean Look. However, I wouldn't say that that's very insightful. Conflict is... There's levels to this game, okay? Conflict will fish, yes. And sometimes his fish might come up short. It's true. But if he's successful, there's a reason, and we got to give this man's intelligence some credit. I'm not saying that if he did go for a risky thing like that, it would be stupid, but he would be stupid. But no, but it's just, I'm not convinced by that argument. Let's also consider another thing for a second here. Lax is at +1. Do you really want to click Mean Look at +1? No, what I would do is click Charm. So at the very least, with D4 going for Double Edge on this turn here, he's getting damage on the Umbreon guaranteed. Yeah, sure, he got a crit, whatever, but he got damage on the Umbreon. That's what matters. And so he goes to his Jinx. That there was no scenario where he had to actually respect Mean Look to begin with. So but I don't blame the other person who spoke to me about this for that, because obviously when you're talking about a game, what really leaves an impression on people's minds are the moves more than the exact interactions in the turn. So when we were talking about the game, we were more talking about the moveset that Umbreon could have had than the specifics of the game. We didn't remember that the Lax was at +1. Like, I sure as hell didn't. Anyways, It reveals a Zap Cannon on this turn here, which is interesting. So there you go. There was no mean look. But yeah, Zap Cannon almost guarantees to paralyze Jinx if it hits. When I say almost, that's because there's a weird glitch in Gen 2. The 1 in 255 glitch, which does not apply to accuracy like it does in RBY, but it does apply to moves with a 100% chance of activating the secondary effect. Namely, Zap Cannon, Icy Wind, Dynamic Punch, and yes, Thief. So, yeah. It's more like a 49% chance. Anyways, I suppose we got to go back to this turn here, of course. So, this one here, the Umbreon got hit. Conflict went for a gamble. He did go for a gamble. And it didn't really pay off. So, it's not a Pursuit Umbreon. At least it doesn't look like it. Lax comes in, takes a 21, and look at that. So, this is another turn I wanted to talk about. Not so much the crit on the Lax from the turn before, but think about it here. So, what are the odds? Okay, big fat crit. Now, Ice Beam nearly KOs. And, oh, good gracious. I got to keep doing this over and over. Yeah, so it nearly KOs, if not outright KOs. And a player obviously wants to click rest. But it's Jinx. Jinx could be going for Lovely Kiss here. And that would make sense. Because then, the odds of landing Lovely Kiss are very high. 75. And if I get it on your Lax, the odds of you getting rest with Sleep Talk are very low. It's, rest with Sleep Talk is like 33%, but there's also the chance that you have to wake up. There's the chance you'd fail after. There's the chance of getting crit in the process. So it would basically increase D4's chances to a point where the Lax is nearly guaranteed to die on the next turn. And if it doesn't die on the next turn, well, that's only because Conflict switched out the Lax. And okay, you switch out the Lax. When are you going to bring it back in? You're going to bring it back in at 27%, and it has to burn up to 6 turns with this induced sleep. It's not sleep from rest, but it's induced. Good luck with that. So he goes for this Sleep Talk prediction, and it didn't pay off. Conflict went for a move where he was considering odds, and it made perfect sense. It didn't pay off, and now Cloyster is in this weird spot. He goes to Zapdos, interestingly. Probably switching in Zapdos here was because the Zapdos can come in on Psychic, and Psychic would have killed the Cloyster, but Ice Beam most certainly would not have. So another bad call for Conflict. He was just playing optimally, but everything went terribly. Absolutely terribly. Umbreon is dead. Another Ice Beam prediction, Psychic prediction, and it didn't work. And at this point, the Machamp is, Machamp, so it's not going to beat this. And the game is over in 27 turns. It's over in less than 30 turns. So, I think I did a good job at commenting on this one. What do you guys think? All right, moving along. We got our last game here. And these are 2 more super exciting players. We got ourselves M-Dragon, who I teamed up with in Pokemon Perfect League. He's also known as the man that built every team ever. He supported Kenix in GSC Invitational, or Kenix. leading him to his victory. Yeah, and we got Century Express. A ladder hero. He's just charismatic. He's really high level. All right. So zap on zap. And immediately M-Dragon will be going to a Raikou. Yeah. Oh yeah, M-Dragon's on the bigs. Anyways, Skarmory comes in on Lax. Nothing to see here, just normal stuff. Lax. Whirlwind. Whirlwind is an effective scouting move as much as it is a defensive move. But unfortunately, it didn't really reveal all that much yet. And now we see a Gengar. So Gengar, double Elec, and double Elec on the other side as well. So this is interesting. Century Express bringing almost certainly a more offensive build. I don't think he has a Skarmory. He could, but I would expect a Golem or maybe a Steelix. I don't know. He could have a Skarmory. So it would be focused on the offense of spikes. Raikou. M-Dragon's Raikou is Roar. And it gets paralyzed, which sucks. Fori. Unfortunately, the Fori takes a flamethrower. And that really sucked. When the hell did this Lax use Lovely Kiss? Oh, it used it just there as the Fori came in. So that's very interesting. Let's talk about that a second. Fori comes in. Of course, M-Dragon, didn't know and whatever. And probably better to bring Fori in and get it Lovely Kissed than, say, Skarmory. So, yeah. Then he stays in because it's like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I get my spikes and he spins them away, but my Fori is healthy, right? Wrong. Flamethrower. It's Lovely Kiss Flamethrower Lax. And Century Express is going to take this Spikes game to the bank because he has a spin blocker and he probably has a spinner and he has a healthy-ass Cloyster. So M-Dragon is in a really tough spot because he might not even ever get the chance to spin if he doesn't have a second spinner. So there's obviously a Lax, and then I would assume a Flame Lax answer, so it could be Misdreavus, but it could be a Golem, or it could be a Tar. Thunderbolt, or it could even be Umbreon. Unfortunately, Raikou is paralyzed, but, does he want to rest already? No, it's a little bit too soon for that. So he's going to go to Misdreavus. But of course, this Misdreavus can be Lovely Kissed. He goes to Raikou, interestingly. Interesting double there. That might have been fatal, but worked out. Golem, and there is the Golem. And in comes a Skarmory. Century Express predicting Missy to come in. Good double to Fori there. I suppose it brings the Fori back into the conversation. It has at least a little bit extra health. It's not a protect, it would appear, because otherwise I would have clicked that every day of the week on that turn facing the Zap, but nope. And what else? Well, I suppose I kind of don't remember when the Zapdos got poisoned, but it got poisoned. So yeah, Misdreavus comes in and it's whatchamacallit. It is asleep. And it's going to sleep another turn. And so it looks as though these spikes are going to stay permanently already as of turn 33. At least we see T-Bolt. Man, if this were Sleep Talk Missy, this would have been a whole other story. Sleep Talk Toxic T-Bolt Missy is a thing. It's used to sort of chip certain things, but it obviously sucks against Steelix and Nidoking. But interestingly enough, we have seen like 3 Nidokings this entire SPL, which is dumbfounding, to say the least. And we got Crunch, a good old do-nothing move, in my opinion. It's nice against ghosts. Golem spins away the spikes, and just like that, M-Dragon is in an uphill battle now. He has Earthquake, so he can definitely beat this team, And in fact, he takes out the Lax, which is also very nice. But this Cloyster is going to threaten the Lax. So what's M-Dragon going to do? He's going to rest. Probably a good call. Not to, go too hard there. You could also have... You also could... So I want to talk about that turn there. So a very viable thing to do sometimes is to stay in. But Cherry, that's horrifying. Like, I'm facing 3 boom offense Mons. Surely I'm gonna have to respect the opponent, and the threat of a boom. Yeah, of course it's scary. That's why we're at SPL. When you have Snorlax that has 2 turns of sleep to burn, and it's going to come in against a strong attack pretty much guaranteed anyways, maybe try and burn 1 turn of sleep. That doesn't mean that switching out from M-Dragon was a bad turn. I'm just saying that it's another option, because most of the time when the player is trying to fill you out, you can, they're going to go for Surf with their Cloyster. Don't necessarily stay in on, say, I don't know, what else booms what is also very trigger friendly? I don't know. A Gengar, maybe not, right? Because Gengar... But Cloyster has other options to deal nice damage by calling out boom switches. So sometimes they will predict a Gengar switch in or another kind of switch in, like Misdreavus in this case. So you could, chances are you're gonna live. You're gonna live that Surf, or even if it's another strong move, you could do that. You should consider doing that a little bit. Like if your opponent is facing your Zapdos and you have facing you with a Zapdos and you have Cursey Q-Lax and you have 2 turns to burn before switching out, maybe consider burning 1 turn of rest. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that you get hit. The best that can happen is that they switch out and you just burned a turn for free. Things can happen. But again, Misdreavus comes in. It's threatened, but it threatens out the Cloyster. So Misdreavus goes for T-Bolt. Could have clicked rest, but had to commit to something. And goes for a Protect. So, yeah. Protect is nice. It's nice. It's not always the best, but now we see how abusable Lax is. Golem is very trigger happy, right? It doesn't really have to do much. If it takes out the Lax, it's served its purpose of taking out, of resisting the normal threat. So, but Cloyster is still functional in that it can set up spikes again should M-Dragon ever be able to spin somehow magically. But in this case, it booms. All right. Because of the sleep talk and all that stuff. Again, not saying M-Dragon did a bad thing. It's really hard. That was a good boom, of course. And now the Gengar could boom on this Raikou if it wants. The Zapdos is nice. M-Dragon is still in this conversation, still very much in a good position. He is technically up 6, but in reality, his Fori and Lax are dead. And the Misdreavus is low. So it's really 3-4 and not 6-4, which is very horrifying. You could say 4-4 if you're optimistic. And it's a Roar Raikou, which is very abusable, especially without the spikes. So yeah. Raikou doing Raikou things. In comes Zap. And of course, M-Dragon's Raikou is slower. Roar Raikou is usually slower. It's at 319 speed. To be slower than Sleep Talk Raikou. But not being all that helpful. And this Zapdos, unfortunately, I don't know, it's not going to be able to do too much. But it uses Rest. It's going to expend most of the PP there. But it gets hit. Yeah. So, there's a crit as well, which obviously sucks. And another thing about Roar Raikou is that every attack it uses counts for exactly that amount. Sleep Talk Raikou can kind of cheat in the PP war because it can use Sleep Talk and not use any attack PP, or it cannot attack. And it creates a whole mind game in the PP management. But Misdreavus is slowly coming back. It can go for a double protect here. Did not do that. He could have gone for a second protect. Oh well. Again, no misplay or anything. These are just two really good players. But I don't love double electric. Oh, man. Double electric was really a sign of a certain time where I think McMegan was the person to popularize it. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it was McMegan. Back when, Lavos was still playing, that was when it was probably super popular. But to me, it just underperforms in so many aspects. It's like... It's not that strong, specially speaking. It's just good against frail mixed attackers, but it's not good against especially bulky Pokemon. It's kind of... And they both do the exact same thing. Zapdos and Raikou do the exact same thing. If you want it not to do the same thing, then you're going to have a Raikou like M-Dragon's, which doesn't. Like, it just stays inactive for so long. And if you want them not to be abusable, you have two electrics that do the same thing, and they don't contribute to the spikes game. They abuse the spikes, but if there are no spikes, or if there's just too many specially defensive blobs or electric resists, it's just so annoying. It's disappointing. So don't use it, guys, please. Thank you. All right. If you really want special offense so badly, consider Jolteon, which sets up, or Vaporeon, which sets up, or Espeon, or use Alakazam, or Jinx, or Starmie. I don't care. Just use anything else. Moltres, even. Well, don't use Moltres, because Moltres sucks. Moltres is good on, like, one type of team, and you guys have shown me that you don't know how to build it. Okay, more of this stuff. More of this stuff. The moment CE decides to pull a trigger or, hit Zapdos, it's a really bad spot. I mean, M-Dragon can win. He has to be smart with the PP he's using against Raikou. But if he could take out this Zapdos, then he would have 2 electrics versus 1, in which case he would be in a nice spot. In fact, I might have stayed in on that turn there. This one here. It froze. This turn, turn 127, the one where you're about to see, I might have stayed in there. Yeah. Would have put it in a position where Century Express would have had to play more defensively. So that could have been nice. But yeah. So, anywho. Crunch, I really don't like Crunch, but it's sort of nice, I guess, because of this Spadef drop. Before he dies, before he wasn't even fodder at this point, it would have just ended a turn. That's it. Zapdos, Raikou, Zapdos, Raikou, Golem, Skarm, Lax dies, turn 140, whatever, 144, and yeah, Raikou, Golem, Zap. Thunderbolt. More stuff. And now M-Dragon is in a tough spot. He has a Skarmory, which basically just, well, it could break, it can hurt Raikou if the Raikou runs out of T-Volt. But that's a big ass if. And it can blank a Boom. Maybe 2. And Sentry is going to phase again, switch, get Raikou chipped, bring Golem in, bring Zapdos in, Raikou, crit, rest, Golem, phase, Raikou, things happening, crunch, Golem, phase, Gengar, Ice Punch, and no break there. Zapdos, or Raikou gets killed, and yeah. Low on PP, but gets a Spadef drop. Jesus Christ. Gets an immediate Spadef drop. Now it's impossible to wall. Skarmory lives a T-Bolt and then dies. Alright. Well, now Century Express won. There's literally nothing that M-Dragon can do. Okay. So, I hope that you guys had fun. I know I did. It was a bit of a... I caught a bit of a break by being able to commentate this on 2 separate days. I went a little bit deeper into the second part, so I hope that you guys enjoy. Stay tuned. We have 2 more weeks, and then the main season event ends, and we will have the playoffs. I might decide to take a break before covering the playoffs again in an immediate go. I don't know. There will be obviously a lot less games to commentate on. But yeah, all right, take care. I think I forgot a teensy tiny detail for the millionth time. So, week 8 predictions. Haha, yeah, that's right. I forgot. So, well, how's about we talk about all of these predictions that we have here? This is obviously going to be the most anticipated game of the week. And a close second. Oh, Hyoga's back. Close second would probably be Fear, Seatom, Century Express, Real Jester. These are all obviously good. And, but yeah, so D4 versus M-Dragon. The records of these players are very different, but that's because when one person wins a lot, it kind of skews the sample size of how many other people are winning. If you're always winning, your record will be higher. It's like, there's like a statistic, I can't even remember what it's called. Let's look at that real quick. Tiers, GSC, and here we are. So, D4 is at 7, Conflict is at, Fear and Century Express are tied 5 and 2. 4Gs is undefeated, winning all 3 games. That checks out. And M-Dragon is, well, tied in terms of wins, and same thing with Seatom. So M-Dragon's wins were against very high caliber players, although he also lost to sufficiently high level players as well. It's not really easy to say, but he beat Jester. The game against Century Express was rather unfortunate, and sometimes I believe that the issue with M-Dragon's teams may or may not be with the building process, the idea behind the team. We kind of saw that a little bit in week 1, and we saw how he's equally capable of bringing extremely high results. He has the highest highs sometimes, defeating Conflict, who he's the first person to defeat him. He broke the streak, He obviously beat Hyoga, who's also at a good level but wasn't doing too strong this season. And yeah, I think he might have gotten a bit unlucky against Alice. I can't quite remember. I've been following this for a very long time, and he did solidly against Jester. So there you go. Then there was a loss versus Seatom. So it depends, like Seatom is obviously also good. So for me, it's really a matter of, is he going to be able to tap into the X gene, the one that only he knows, that can bring him to the highest highs? Like, is that performance going to be a 10, or is it going to be a 6? And that's really what it's going to boil down to. I'm going to bold him because of biased. All right, there you go. D4 obviously has been fucking defying all of my expectations. So a lot of people would probably say D4 is going to win, and I absolutely would not blame you for choosing any of the other two. But for emotional purposes, I'm choosing M-Dragon. All right, fair. Okay, 4Gs and Conflict. 4Gs, he was the last person I commentated. No, he was not. Never mind. I think of the new starters, 4Gs has been doing nice, yeah. But Quartos has been playing well despite losing all the games. It's kind of like Quartos faced Century Express, D4, and Fear, and 4Gs. And 4Gs faced Alice, Quartos, and Seatom. I think Seatom got unlucky, and I cannot quite recall the game versus Alice. But is 4Gs a 3K buy really going to be ready to face Conflict? That is something I'll leave you guys to guess. I'm bolding Conflict here. and I'm going to. I don't know what I'm going to do if he loses. So, false versus Hyoga. So that was an easy predict. False versus Hyoga. False. I'm bolding false. The Scooters in these 8 weeks have yet to win a single GSC game. Both Hyoga and Quartos have not caught a break. Hyoga is returning after a 4-week hiatus, it would appear, or maybe they've been playing other tiers. We could find that out right now. Hyoga has played GSC and has played Black and White, and also Scarlet and Violet. So, yeah, they're deciding to mix things up. It doesn't necessarily matter all that much right now because the team looks like it's not going to qualify. So it's also they're also facing conflict. They're facing false. So yeah, false is even 1-1. So losing to a player that we would expect them to lose to and winning against a player that they were a little bit more likely to win against if you had to compare it versus Fear. So Fear is, top 3 player, but in GSC in general, top 2, top 1, whatever you want. He's one of the best, easily the best builder this season. So, all right. False, to me, is really, really good and just very solid. I believe that false would beat Hyoga. Hyoga has not been super prepped, and the teams were a little bit all over the place, and the play has not been stellar. Honestly, I think Quartos might have been a bit better, but I believe that Hyoga can prove himself. He can prove to be the man he is when he got second in GSC Invitational and he took some games, but he has never had a great SPL, I believe. So, Century Express versus Real Jester. This is going to be fun as hell. Fun. Not super anticipated by non-GSC fans, but definitely a game to watch if you're new to this channel. It'll definitely be something to look out for. And if this game is going to be played on Saturday, I'd be more than glad to cover it. I'll see what I can do. So, Century Express and Real Jester. Very different play styles, very different building. And, it's about time we finally get this classic what am I saying? This iconic matchup. I think it'll be fun. So who do I think will win? I just think Jester is doing very good, and we'll see. We'll see how motivated he is into this. His team might have a shot, so he's probably pretty motivated. And Century Express also has to qualify. So they're both going to be smacking each other hard. I think it's a matter of who's hungrier. I give the advantage to Century Express just because he's been performing very solidly this season. Very solidly. And I think his biggest win might be against M-Dragon and Alice. But he's proven that he can kind of outsmart the people that are on a lower level than him. And Century Express, to me, is in the top 4. So, yeah. Then we got the last, which is Fear and Siatam. Siatam needs to optimize a little bit. I think that if Siatam, when Siatam is like at its best, it's when he has that solid ass game plan, and when he's not bringing stall. Unfortunately, I think he played 3 stall games and they all went badly. The Hyoga game he won, and he brought stall. But there were some weird games where he should have won and he did not. And if he brings that against Fear, Fear will capitalize on that. Fear will embrace a stall user. I don't think you should bring stall against someone that is better than you. That's my philosophy. So, unless you have a real good reason to. That said, Fear has been easily one of the best builders, and he's probably the absolute hardest to prep against without, a precise game plan. And it looks like some of the losses, well, the 2 losses really. The loss versus D4 came down to some weird hacks, and I can't remember how he lost to Jester, but Fear has been super freaking solid, and he's looking to get into the top 2 ranks with his win streak. He could, it's still possible that he can tie with D4 in terms of his win streak, so. And not win streak, but wins. So yeah, wow, this was a long-ass prediction. All right, then. I hope you guys enjoy. So, take care, for real.